Hello everybody, welcome back to Book Bar and welcome to my March wrap up. In the month of March, I read a total of 32 books. I also did a mid-month wrap up halfway through the month, which I will post up here. So for this, I will just I'll quickly go over the 18 books that I read at the first half of the month. I'm not going to talk in depth. If you want to know my in-depth thoughts, go to the wrap up. But the first book that I read was Just One Night by Carly Phillips. And then I read The Answer Is by Alex Trebek, just a memoir. So Just One Night got 3.5 stars. The memoir got 5 stars. Then I read The Bully by Sophie Lark, another 5-star read. Then I read Cold Hearted Rake by Lisa Kleypas. This book got 3.5 stars. Then I read The Boys of Brayshaw High by Megan Brandy. That got 3.5 stars. Then I read A Certain Appeal by Vanessa King. That was a 4-star read. Then I read Flagrant by Alexandria House. That was a 4.5-star read. I read The Perfect Play by G.S. Carr. That was a 3.5-star read. I read Mountain Delight by Vanessa Vale. I did not rate that book. I read Devious Lies, which was a 4.5-star read. Your Dad Will Do by Katie Robert. Your Dad Will Do by Katie Robert. That got 4 stars. The Spy by Sophie Lark, 5 stars. Arrogant Assassin by Alyssa Cole. This, I believe, I gave 4 stars. Roman by Sophie Lark got 4 stars. Dawn by Sophie Lark got 5 stars. Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill got 3.5 stars. A Walk in the Park by Rebecca Weatherspoon got 4.5 stars. You Loved Me Once by Corinne Michaels got 4.5 stars as well. And now into the books that were not in the first half of the month. So I will talk more in depth about these. Sorry, I'm looking down and looking at my reading journal, which has more in-depth notes. So the first book, so I do books in order of how I read them. I know I probably should have explained this before going over all the other books, but I do books in order of how I read them, like how I finished them, not necessarily how I started them. So the first book that I finished in the second half of the month was The Rivalry by Nikki Sloan. This is a friends to lovers sports romance, but with a rivalry twist. So the main character, Kayla, is a cheerleader at Michigan. No, she's a cheerleader at Ohio State. And she meets this guy at a wedding who is the quarterback for Michigan. And his name is Jay. And Michigan and Ohio State are total rivals. They hate each other, all of the things. And so Kayla has a really hard time with this because she was raised like Ohio State through and through to the blood. Like, can't stand Michigan at all, wants nothing to do with them. But of course, she ends up falling for him and is not able to deny her attraction to Jay. And I absolutely loved this book. It was fantastic. It was exactly what I wanted when I wanted it. I really wanted a book I really wanted a sports romance told from dual POV. Because I was finding a lot that were only from one point of view, and I wanted dual. I wanted both. And this hit on all cylinders. It was fantastic. And of course, I gave it 5 stars. Then I read The Proposal by Mary Balog. This was for the Rig Appreciation Society, which is hosted by Jen from the Book Refuge and Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life. It was their book club pick. And I gave this book 4 stars. It's a class difference. The scarred hero. The heroine who has been married is also emotionally scarred. So Hugo has just become a lord because of what he did in the war, and he meets Gwen after she falls, and he helps her and takes care of her. So there was caretaking, and then he proposes to her, but she says no, and you need to court me for a season. And they kind of have a push and pull, and it was very angsty. And I I don't know. I felt like Hugo was very insufferable. So yeah, I was not a huge fan of it. I mean, I really did enjoy it. The writing was great. It was fantastic that way. I just didn't love the characters, so I knocked it down a star. I mean, I still gave it 4 stars. I still really enjoyed the book and my experience reading it. It just wasn't that fantastic. And then I read The Bombshell Effect by, why is that not in here? Oh, there it is. The Bombshell Effect by Carla Sorensen. This is the first book in her Washington Wolves series. This is another sports romance that was told from dual POV. I was going through something. Luke is the quarterback of the football team. He's also a single parent, and he does not trust women, like, at all. He thinks everyone's a fan, and it's just after his money, because his deceased, the mother of his child, who is no longer alive, was kind of that way, and, like, caused this whole big scene and started a whole story, and it was, so he does not trust women. And one day he is at home, and this lady walks up in her bikini with some cupcakes. Turns out that and he says some really mean things to her. She throws the cupcakes at him. Whole big thing. Turns out that she is his new boss. She is now the owner of the football team that he plays for, Allie Sutton. And they can't deny their attraction. They're neighbors, so there's that forced proximity. And they're forced into situations where they're doing a lot together. And of course, sparks fly when a fan takes a picture of them doing some stuff. This whole big story breaks out, and there's all sorts of drama. Of course, causes further conflict, but it's still fantastic. The kid was awesome. She was totally, like, she played enough of a role in the story that you knew she was there, but she wasn't, like, because of his job, he had to have people around him to help her out. She wasn't completely, like, ignored for half the story. She was there, but she also wasn't, like, always there and always causing problems, like, doing stuff to cause relationship problems. I mean, she loved Allie from day one, so that helped, but she was also, because of his job and him having to travel a lot, his parents were around a lot and helped out with her, so it wasn't constant. He wasn't constantly having to leave Allie for his kid, because there was times when they were away together on work trips. So it was enough of the child without it being all about the child, if you know what I mean. So I enjoyed it. It was good. Single parent. I don't normally like single parent romances, but it was a pretty good one. Then I read and I gave that one, I gave The Bombshell Effect 4 stars. Then I read Marrying Winterbourne by Lisa Kleypas. This book was beautiful. I absolutely loved it. I gave this one 5 stars. And so it's Reese Winterbourne, who is the owner of, like, a huge, like, retail shop, and Helen Ravenel, who's the oldest Ravenel daughter, or Ravenel girl. She's not Devin's daughter, but complicated. If you read the stories, you know how the family all fits together. But so in the first book, in Cold Hearted Rake, Reese does some stuff that's kind of unforgivable, and he was engaged to Helen, and then their engagement was broken off at the end of Cold Hearted Rake. But Helen realizes that she still really wants to marry him. So she goes and finds him, and he says, I'll marry you, but I have to ruin you first. Like, I need to promise that you're going to go through with this. So he doesn't force her. She agrees to sleep with him before they're married, so that way they are forced to get married. And of course, some secrets come out about Helen, and she's worried that he's not going to love her if the secrets come out, if she tells him his secret, and then they end up finding it out. It was amazing, the way Reese was with her. He was totally touch her and I kill you. Like, Reese Winterbourne has now become my favorite Kleypas hero. He overtook Derek Craven. He is my top-notch favorite hero. And so, yeah, I mean, it's only the second book in the series, and I've heard that the heroes just get better and better and better. So I'm really excited. Then I read Hookline Sinker by Tessa Bailey. This was Hannah and Fox. Hannah is Piper's little sister, so we met her and Fox both in the first book. And in the first book, you could kind of tell that Fox had a thing for Hannah. He does something really sweet for her in the book. And so it starts off, the second book starts off with them like texting back and forth about music and things. And then she comes up with this. She works in LA as a PA for a production company. And she comes up with this idea that their next film needs to be filmed in Westport. And so she calls Hannah, she calls Piper, and unfortunately, Brendan's parents are coming to town. So they are going to be staying with Piper and Brendan, so there's nowhere for Hannah to stay. And they're like, well, why don't you stay with Fox? He has an extra room in his apartment. So they knew that they were friends. So she goes and stays with Fox. And of course, chemistry. He was a ladies' man and only ever really slept around and wasn't serious about women. Like, he didn't date. He only would go have flings up in Seattle. He wasn't a dater. He was a serial ladies' man. And it talks a lot about the toxic masculinity, because that's how he was raised, and like what he was raised to believe was that all he was good for was for his looks. He had some trauma in a past relationship that caused this, and trauma from his parents and everything. So he doesn't believe he's good enough for anyone and good enough for a relationship. And everyone kind of tells him that he's not good enough. And he believes that Hannah is in love with her producer. But she's not. She's kind of, the feelings she had for him have faded because she started to like Fox. And so, of course, being close together, forced proximity, sparks are going to fly. And she's going to realize that he really does have feelings for her. And so I gave this one 4.5 stars. It was so much slow. It was a very, I can't use words. It was very slow burn. And I gave both books 4.5 stars. I don't really know which one I like more. It happened when Summer had enemies to lovers, which I appreciate more. And I usually don't like friends to lovers because I never believe that one of them's just friends. But you kind of know from the beginning, because like when you're in Fox's perspective, you know that he has feelings for her. And it's not like trying to hide it. Like, he literally is like, he does not do anything to hide his feelings other than he had bought something and hides it in his house. And then when she finds out, she's like, oh, he really likes me. And so, but it was good. I gave it 4.5 stars. Unfortunately, I think that was the end of the series because there was only 2 Bellingers, and it was the Bellinger sister series. So I kind of wish she would have done like a Westport thing, because there's a lot of fun characters, like side characters from Westport, but who knows. And then I read Transcendence by Shay Savage. This was the cover to cover book club pick, which is hosted by Sam from Sam Reads a Little and Tori from Novel Life. This is a virgin hero, caveman. I'm not going to say what the other trope is in it, but it was, they can't communicate with each other. This was Ed and Beth, or Beth as he calls her. And it was hard to get into at first because the whole book is told from his perspective, and he is a caveman, so he's not from our time. So his thoughts are very much like, I need to protect her, and I need to put a baby in her, and that's all he thinks about, is like protecting her and putting a baby in her and feeding her and keeping her warm. Like, all it is like total protection and then getting her pregnant. And so, of course, like, they end up, because again, forced proximity. They're forced together. They have to be together because Be is in this time period, and they need to find a way to communicate with each other, and they end up falling in love. And I ended up really enjoying this story when I got to the end. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. Lower 4.5 stars, but still 4.5. It was just so sweet. And just the way it ended was, amazing. Now I really need to read the novella, Luffs, which is told from Be's perspective. And so you'll get to see, and because during the live show for it, there was all sorts of discussions, and it was saying that you learn a lot more about what went through her head while all of this was going on, and like her, when she comes to realize that she loves him and all these things. And so I want to read that because it's really short. It's only like 70 something pages or 90 something pages. So I do need to pick that up, but I have to pay for it. So that's my only reason I haven't read it yet. But yeah, that one I gave 4.5 stars. And then I read Viscount Who Loved Me. I have a whole vlog about this, so I'm not going to talk about it much. I read the book and then I watched the show. I will link the vlog up above. I mean, I talk about most of these books in vlogs, but this one was like a dedicated vlog to this book, so I don't need to go into detail about it. It's Anthony Bridgerton and Kate Sheffield in the book. She's Sharma in the show. And I really loved the book. I gave the book 5 stars. And that is all I'm going to say. Then I read Seatmate by Cara Bastone. This was an audio exclusive book. It's in her, she has a whole series. Cara Bastone has a whole series. I've read one each month this year. I read one in January, which was Call Me Maybe. And then I read Sweet Talk in February. And then this time I read Seatmate. And it's just, they're fun, sweet novella length, shorter novel length books. Because, I mean, they're still like a 5-hour audiobook. So they're normal, they're short novel length. Longer novella. It is, of course, it's insta love because it is short, but it's a fun insta love, and they are sitting next to each other on a bus from Boston to New York City, and the bus breaks down. There's all sorts of issues with the bus breaks down. They get in a car. The car, then something happens to the car. They have to get on a bike. And then he has to like ride her on the handlebars to get her to this interview. And there's kittens that they pick up on the side of the road. And it's just so cute. And I don't want to say much more because it'll spoil anything. So I 100%, if you have Audible, go listen to it. It is fantastic. 5 stars. The whole, all 3 of these books, all 3 of these audiobooks are just fantastic productions. Full cast, like different characters, different voices, everyone. They are so good. Then I read A Knight in Shining Armor by Jude Devereaux. This was the Historical Hellions book club pick, which that is hosted by Samantha from Books with Samantha and Jess from Peace Love Books. And I gave this one 3 stars. It was time travel romance, class difference kind of, because he's an earl, she is not, obviously. My biggest issue with this is it spent entirely too much time in the present day, which this book was published in 1989, so the present day was 1988. So it spent entirely too much time in the 20th century and not enough time in the 16th century, which was his time. Because when they did end up going to the 16th century, and when they were in that time period, the book really picked up, and I really, really loved it. And I probably would have given it higher, but because of that, I ended up only giving it 3 stars. And I mean, I will probably read another Jude Devereaux. I know she is like a classic historical romance author, but I just didn't love the time spent in the present day. Like, there was, this book could have been probably 100 pages shorter had they taken out 90% of what happened. Because a lot of what happened was just like slice of life-y type stuff, like him learning all about technology and all these fun things, and didn't necessarily need, a little bit of it would have been good, but we didn't need all of it. Then I read Welcome to the Dark Side by Gianna Darling. This is the second book in her Fallen Men series. Motorcycle Club. It's a motorcycle club, age gap, caretaking, touch her and you die, total vibes. This one is, she is under 18. I will say that for most of the book. I still really enjoyed it because there is a part in there where they say the age of consent is 16, and she very much pursues him. Like, he doesn't want, he like So it starts off when she's 6 or 7 years old. They're in a church parking lot. Someone shoots at her, and he jumps in front of her and ends up saving her life. So that the bullet goes through him. It also ends up going through her, but instead of it being like in her heart or anything, like it goes through her shoulder. And so she calls him her guardian monster. He ends up going to prison because he murdered the guy that shot her. This is all in the first chapter. It's not a spoiler. Zeus is the man who saved her, and it's Lulu. While at the hospital, they learn that Lulu has Hodgkin's lymphoma, and so she writes letters to Zeus while he's in prison. They write letters back and forth for the next 10 years or 9 years till she's 16, and she says that she's in love with him, and he's like, I gotta stop. No, can't do this, kid. And then a year later, turns out her cancer's back, and she's ready to rebel. She's tired of being the mayor's good little girl and wants to rebel. So she does all these things, and Zeus ends up back in her life. And of course, she still pursues him. He tries to deny it. And he's like, I will teach you how to rebel, how to be an outlaw, but no touching. No touching. You cannot touch me. And then, of course, things happen, and they end up together. I gave this one 4.5 stars. My biggest complaint was there was so much emphasis on her being so young. He constantly called her little girl, or there was one part where he sneaks into her room, and he says the dirty talk is fantastic, but he says some really ick things, being in her room, and that just made me lower it down. But I still really enjoyed it, and I'll definitely be continuing the series. Then I read The Savage by Sophie Lark, which was my most anticipated read of the year so far. And I gave this one 5 stars. I'm kind of wanting to lower it, after just thinking about it, because their relationship was so toxic. But I still really loved it. And Sophie Lark's writing is just fantastic. And so I'm not going to lower it because as I said, if you watched my readings video, how I rate books video, I rate based off of the feeling, and I don't change my rating. Now, is this a book that I think I'll ever reread? Probably not. But I did enjoy it. It's Sabrina and Adric, who we met Sabrina in a couple of the earlier Kingmakers books, but we really meet both of them in The Spy. I'm not going to say how they get to know each other, but basically they meet, and Adric says, meet me in Dubrovnik at the dock when you get done with Kingmakers. So they meet, they have a wild, wild night. She is he does everything for her. She kind of says, I'm not really all that into men. And they go to a club, and there's a woman there, and he's like, hey, take her. I don't care. Bring her back. We can. So there's definitely FFM scenes, or MFF, however you want to say it. There's FF scenes. It's spicy. This book brings the heat, for sure. There is all sorts of different spiciness. It was a 10 on my spice ratings. There was everything. It was very good. And then, of course, you learn that Adric wants Sabrina to come with him to Moscow to help him run his empire that he wants to build there. She ends up not going back to Kingmakers, goes with him. There's all sorts of drama. She thinks that he lied. He kind of did. And I honestly don't think he groveled enough. My biggest issue with this, there's a lot of drug use. They were both alphas, alpha and alpha. Sabrina's an alpha, Adric's an alpha. There's no meekness in either of them. There's no give in either of them. They push and push and push and push and push and push and push. There's no pull from either of them. And so all sorts of drama. They are the type of characters that they're so fire that they don't care if they burn the world down around them. They just care about each other. And yeah, I still really enjoyed it. Sophie Lark writes a great story. And I still gave it 5 stars. But and the plot for this was a lot more like ramped up. There was a lot of craziness, the drug triggers for drug use, because there is a lot of it. And a lot of violence, and violence towards women. None by Adric, of course. None by the hero or any of his friends. But there is violence towards women. But yeah, I still give it 5 stars. And I will always continue to read Sophie Lark because I love her writing. Absolutely 100%. Sophie Lark is the queen, in my opinion. And will forever be one of my favorite authors. And then I read... Sorry, I have to do something. Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. This is an adult grimdark fantasy about the last Silver Saint. And it talks about how the daytime hasn't come back for a very long time. It's been 27 years or something like that. And it's just him telling the story and how he got to where he is. And I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It was kind of crazy. A lot happens and a lot goes on, and it's very long. And I don't want to say much because I don't want to spoil anything. But I did really enjoy it, and I think I think it's supposed to be a series, I would continue the series. And then I read my favorite book of all time, Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. This is ex-boyfriend's father, age gap. People say it's taboo. I don't think it's taboo. She is 19 when they meet. There is no cheating. They don't get together until her and Cole have broken up. So the taboo-ness is that he's older. And I've read plenty of other age gap books with a larger age gap. He was 18 when his kid was born. Or 19. 18 or 19. I don't know if it's 18 year or 19 year. Which honestly is not that bad. I've read books with a 20 plus year age gap. This one does not have one. So I don't know where the taboo-ness comes in. I guess because it's the ex-boyfriend. But Jordan has this idiot boyfriend, Cole, and he gets them evicted, and they go and live with his dad. Cole goes out and does all sorts of crazy things and is never home. So Pike and Jordan end up forming a friendship, forming a close bond. And then something happens with Cole, and they break up, and Pike and Jordan just can no longer deny their feelings for each other. Pike is afraid to tell Cole because he is finally starting to get his son back, and he doesn't want to lose him again. Something happens, of course, but it's slow burn, but not super. the first real sexy scene was probably it's halfway into the book. There are other mentions of sexy moments earlier, but yes, I love this book. I will recommend it to everyone all the time, everywhere. Favorite book of all time. Although it might be moved down after The Spy. But I still really love it. And then the last book I read was The Start of Us by Lauren Blakely. This is the start of a trilogy, and it definitely ends on kind of a cliffhanger. It's a love triangle, friends to lovers-ish, kind of one night stand to friends to lovers. Without them really getting to the lovers part yet. I think it'll happen further. Harley goes into No Regrets Tattoo Studio to get a tattoo. And there she meets Trey. And Harley, the next day, is going to change her life. She has all this. Harley's being blackmailed into going to Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, even though she is a virgin. She goes, her and Trey have this crazy night together, where they don't hook up, they don't sleep together, but they do other stuff. So they have one night together, and they then they're like, oh, if fate happens and we see each other, we see each other. Well, turns out he's also going to Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous because he has a thing for older women that live near his parents. And he gets caught cheating, like, with this woman cheating on her husband, and gets his face beaten. And so then they become best friends, and they do everything together, and they're always together. And turns out Harley was a call girl, and she still really, like, is entranced by her pimp, her former pimp. And then at the end, she goes back to the pimp. So that's probably a spoiler. Sorry. I think this book's older. But yeah. Sorry if I just spoiled that for you. But yeah, then that's it. That's the end. And so it goes into the next book. So I don't know how it's all going to end. I'm sure it's Lauren Blakely. It will end fantastic with a happy ending. But I gave that one 3.5 stars. So I didn't end on like the highest of notes. But I should have just stopped with Birthday Girl. But I was like, I have time at work. So I listened to another audiobook. But yeah, that is all of the books that I read this month. Be sure to stay tuned for my stats and faves, which will be coming up in a couple videos. And because I definitely have some faves and some good honorable mentions and everything. So yeah, that is all I have for now. I will talk to you all in the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps me, help my channel grow, all that great thing, all that. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. It's been a long week. I'm filming this on April 1st, and so it's been a long week. But yeah, that is all I have for now. I'll talk to you all in the next one. Bye!